live. It was about to go live. This is the Quynh and Halley Show, everybody. Hi to all the replay viewers. Stay tuned if you are working through some shame right now, or you don't know what to do with your shame, because shame is a heavy one. And I love that we'll just keep on returning back to this conversation, because that's what makes us human. Who doesn't have shame? Who doesn't have guilt? And if you feel like you don't have it anymore, maybe you've really processed it. But the thing is, it will still come up, you know? It's just the way that we process it, understand it, and put love on it and compassion for it. It's a whole different world. So we will talk about anything related to self-love, transformation, healing. And the topic for this talk is shame consciousness. And we're just going to openly share what's been coming up for us and what's been on our mind regarding shame. So Halley, lovely Halley. So just before now, you said that, you've been having a dream that's bringing up your shame. So what's been coming up for you regarding shame, and anything else that you would like to share regarding shame?
I feel like I could talk about shame for like hours and hours hours.
Oh, yeah.
It's such an interesting conversation to me, because where do I even start? Well, first of all, I started this investigation a couple weeks ago. I had a dream. Yeah. And then I had a session the next day with someone that I'm doing session trades with. And in that session, he was helping me process my dream. And then I realized that there was the feeling of guilt was really predominant in the dream that stemmed from childhood. And then I got really curious about the difference between guilt and shame.
Please share. Yes.
And then I was having a conversation with another friend about this, and he sent me an interview of this psychologist talking about the difference. So it's super fascinating. So basically, the energy of guilt, or the feeling of guilt, comes from when you break a value that you have learned, a learned value. So that's why when people start to really individuate from their families and kind of start taking their own path, there can be a lot of guilt that shows up, right? So part of becoming a self and learning who you are oftentimes is really loaded with guilt, because you're breaking free from these identities and values that you grew up to believe, right? Some people are breaking from their religion, and some people are breaking from their traditional family value, whatever it is. Or there's this feeling of how you're supposed to be with others, and then when you need to start setting boundaries because you realize that you need that for health and happiness, you feel guilty, right? There's this
you feel bad.
There's this period of feeling bad and feeling guilty. So that's that. And then there's shame.
Ooh. And then there's shame. Dun, dun, dun. It's the dark clouds are coming out. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, and shame, I just think, is such an important emotion that we have so much awareness of and consciousness of, because the energy of shame, or the experience of shame, is wanting to disappear. It's wanting to hide away.
Yeah, because it's dark, man.
You don't want to have a self anymore. You really want to hide. And when we're not conscious of the fact that we're experiencing shame, we will push other people away as a reaction from our own shame. Because we feel horrible about ourselves.
Yes.
And then we're just don't even get near me. And then we cause harm to other people and other people's hearts. And that's just one potential thing that can happen with shame. But depending on the psychologist, and I'll try and find the interview and link it, but he was talking about how, depending on how we were raised, we all kind of inherit different levels of shame. And so some of us have what he calls toxic levels of shame. And the great thing is, he's been a psychologist for a long time, and he was trying to do this cognitive behavioral therapy with shame, with people with shame as it comes up, which is basically the idea of changing your thoughts. And he was that doesn't work. That doesn't work with shame. The only thing that works with shame is compassion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you have to go in there and like bring it up and love on it. Understand it, self-compassion, like that's all
hold it real sweetly and tenderly, yeah. And so he says, as a practitioner, it's so important that like the healers of the world are like really like good at doing their own self-compassion, because if you can't hold your own shame with compassion, you're gonna have a really hard time holding someone else's shame with compassion.
Yeah, you might even reject it because you're rejecting yours. You have no space for it's like, oh, that's like that dark stuff. I don't even want to touch it. I don't want to be around it because it's gonna bring up my shame. Like,
exactly.
No, thank you.
Exactly. And if you are in the helping profession, like, it's so important that you're able to hold shame, you know, because that's how people heal. And if they get like feel judged about their shame, it's just like a deeper well of pain and suffering, you know?
Yeah.
So that's this like framework. And then I've been paying really close attention to like every little instance of shame that I've been experiencing.
Yes.
And like when it shows up, why it shows up, what my mind does with it, you know, and just becoming like hyper aware of my own shame. As a way to just become like masterful in like processing that emotion. He says it is the underlying emotion, like underneath sadness, underneath regret, like underneath like all the painful emotions is shame. So to know shame is like to get at the root cause of all other pain, you know? So yeah, that's been my thing with shame lately.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, what you got?
It's funny that you talk about dreams, because I literally woke up in tears. You guys, who has been there where you wake up from a dream that you were like sobbing, crying in, and you wake up and like just you're bringing that emotion out into your actual reality. And when I think about shame, it always relates from childhood and things that I have done that when I look back, because I'm seeing where I am now, and then when I look back, you're able to reflect your actions and really realize what kind of hurtful impact it has done. And I'm talking more towards like my siblings. You know, I'm the oldest. Who's the oldest person in their like immediate family? And there could be a lot of high expectations and standards for you to really step into and really hold that role. And looking back, you know, like I remember just experiencing pain, and we don't know what the hell self-love is. We don't know how to like process when it happens, when we're experiencing pain. Like for me, it was bullying. And so I projected that into my siblings at a very young age. And the more pain that I started experiencing from like romantic relationships, it got even more worse. It was like, let me take this because I don't know what to do with this and dump it. So that's where my shame is. And just like, I felt abandoned, so I abandoned my family. You know?
Yeah, that's that thing. Like, you feel shame.
Yes.
And then you just, like, push people away that are trying to love you because you don't feel worthy of love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you know, to even go deeper on that, I mean, like, in that experience, like, I want to say that, like, I knew what I was doing was, like, self-sabotaging. I want to say that I knew that, but you're just, like, in it.
Yeah.
You're just in it. It's like, it's almost like you're seeing what you're doing, but then you don't want to realize what you're actually doing. So you just like push that away. So when family members want to come up to you and talk to you about it, you're just like, you get defensive.
You don't have the space for it yet.
I do not have the space for it. So yeah, a lot of my shame lies in how I treated my family members and how I treated my younger siblings. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's, so in that, right, like this is where the healthy outlets come from. This is where the healthy mind processes go. But really in these healthy outlets, you know, like I need to express myself on video like this, talking about it out loud. I need to journal about it. I need to meditate on it. I need to like get in a sweat and just to release that like shame and like really bringing in the kind talks. Because when we're young, like as we experience these pains, like is that our fault? It's something that happened. Like we're unaware of the environments. We're unaware of what's actually going on. So we just take all that in. And so when we like dump it onto others, you know, when we look back, we can say, you know what? Yes, that is something that happened. And we can take ownership and really use that as fuel to get better. So that's what I've been doing with my shame. It's like having self-compassion, really telling myself, you know what, Quynh, like you didn't know any better. Like you were unconscious, right? Yeah. But now that you're conscious of what your shames are, you can actually do something about it. You can heal yourself. You can really be kind to yourself, and let this be your practice. Let that, when it comes up, it's like, okay, reminder to self, let's improve from this.
Yeah. Which is why I think it's really important to like have a really strong grasp on like what shame feels like.
Yeah.
So that you can tend to it like right when it shows up, you know? Like there's definitely, like when you're experiencing shame, like what does it feel like? What does it make you want to do? Like what's the
It makes me, I just feel ashamed, and I almost want to like reject it. Like, no, did I really do that? It's like in denial. It's hard to believe that that's what you actually did. And like when I think about my shame, yeah, it just makes me feel like almost regretful and just ashamed and almost in disbelief and super disappointed in myself, you know, and sad that it happened, really sad. So that's what's coming up, like when I think about it, like, oh wow, I really did that. Like, how could I? You know, right? So it's kind of like why did I have to experience that and then like cause that kind of harm onto them? You know, so yeah, that's what's showing up.
Yeah. I had a memory today that just like brought back shame. That's the other thing, especially in like quarantine life, is that like I've heard this from a lot of people that like there's a lot of memories that are resurfacing, right? And like just trusting that the memories that are coming back are coming, the particular memories that are resurfacing right now are resurfacing for a reason. They have information about what you're ready to look at.
Totally.
What you're ready to heal.
Hands
what you're
down.
ready to be with. What you're ready to love, you know? And I had some shame memories that were like sexually rooted, which is like a very easy place to find shame.
Totally.
You know?
And self beat up, right?
Go to your like sex history and like there's all kind of shame in there. Hopefully not for everyone, but there is for me.
Yeah.
But mainly it was like the realization that like I haven't always had like my heart and my sexuality like connected. You know?
I feel a lot of people will feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way that like the body can just kind of take over, and then you're like your higher self isn't like present with this very physical part of you. And then you're like doing things with your body that you don't want to be doing with your spirit. And yeah, there was just like a lot of shame, and it's just like it's so important for me right now because now I'm like only interested in like fully integrated spiritual sexuality. But in order to like really call that into my field, I have to like clear the shame from the past, from the history of not being unified in that way, you know? And I think there's something about like the medicine for shame is like and the compassion, I guess, right? As like compassion is always knowing that like anything we have ever done, we have done with the highest consciousness that we have had available to us in that very moment. And so, you know, it's like, and then we get more consciousness, and that's the journey of the soul, is to become more conscious. So as we become more conscious, we can look back at our less conscious selves and be like, oh my gosh, what was I doing? How did I do that? But we couldn't have done any better because we needed to acquire more consciousness in order to see. But then once you can see, you can integrate the lesson. And then once you can integrate the lesson, you can let go. You know, like once you know why that had to happen, like you don't need to keep playing it through over and over again.
Right. In the same way too, you know?
Yeah.
The same self-sabotaging way. And it's almost like, like owning it, understanding it, and knowing, you know what, like I understand why that had to happen. You know, we can't control what kind of cards we're dealt with, but we can definitely step into the consciousness like of knowing of like the cards that were dealt and what we choose to do from it, and choosing what those cards can mean for us, you know, make something mean something out of it. Yeah. So you guys feel free to share, you know, what came up for you while we were bringing up conversations of shame. I feel like, this is something that is definitely holding us down, you know, from feeling worthy of this and that, because we're just shaming ourselves. Exactly. And, you know, you explained the guilt and the shame and, you know, all those feelings it's heavy.
It is, and like you just said, like it really is in direct opposition to self-worth.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, it's like underneath the layers of shame is your self-worth. And the more you can like work with your shame and clear your shame and forgive your shame, then you can just have direct access to your self-worth. Mm-hmm. And then you just show up in your full worth. And then life and the universe and your relationships reflect your full self-worth.
Yes. So love this talk. We'll be back next Tuesday. As far as our workshops that we usually update, it's sold out in 3 days, you guys. 3 days. So if you click the link above, if you sign up for the wait list, if that grows, then we're definitely open to having a second workshop for it. And you guys, so remember to be kind to yourselves, you know, really see what kind of environment you're in, really protect your heart, and make sure you get in that self-loving in.
Yeah, and we offer a donation-based meditation on Thursdays at 2:30 p.m. via Zoom. It's super sweet and special.
So special, you guys.
If you're interested, let us know, and we'll add you to the group on Facebook.
Perfect. All right, guys, we will see you when we see you.